Well, alright, Xander. You got any questions? Yeah, take your phone. That's fine.
Are we starting?
Yeah, man. How you doing?
Is it started?
We're good. We're live.
I'm doing good.
How's life been?
Life's been treating me good.
In what ways?
In what ways? No, I don't know. I've just been on my grind, I guess, ever since I got back from winter break. So
Yeah. On your grind for what? Lifting?
I'm always on my grind for lifting.
Yeah.
No, it's more like finance.
Oh,
stuff.
okay. Yeah.
You know,
So
to
you gave
get
up on your
into that.
condom business, I'm assuming.
No, I did not give it up, but
Okay.
I put it on hold, you know.
On hold. I don't think I ever fully asked you like in detail about this business of yours. How about you explain to me?
The college
Like,
condom?
Yeah, tell me about college condom.
Yeah, so I guess to set the scene, give a little context. Me and my friends are sitting around in West Quad, pretty bored, and we're thinking like how do we make money, like
As people do.
as we do, you know, like what's the next idea, like we need to make some money. And so yeah, there's all these football games happening, right? And like somehow condoms get brought up or something, and then
So you went from football games to condoms.
I mean they're kind of related, I guess.
I guess.
Because I mean, yeah, people go to the football games and they go out to party, right?
Right. Smart.
And so we're thinking like, what if we had customized condoms that we sold outside of the big house, and just had thousands of them, and then we were just churning a profit, you know?
So you're gonna set like a hot dog stand up outside the big house.
Exactly, but
Post
condoms.
football game. College condoms. I see my boy Xander and Diego out there,
Yeah.
whoever. And
Yeah.
what do you mean by custom condoms?
Yeah, so it was gonna have a logo on it. It was gonna be the M logo, but then obviously, well, what happened is that we didn't want to actually sell it out there, because we wanted to watch the game, and we also didn't want to be vendors, because that's kind of putting a lot of faith into ourselves, and we didn't want to be embarrassed. So basically, we were like, okay, how can we make this into an actual business? We move it online, and so
Can Teo find it if you've tried looking for it?
yeah, collegecondom.com. You can find it
We'll
right
let
now.
We'll let Teo look for it.
But yeah, what you will not find is college logos anymore, because we had like trademark problems with that.
Is this you?
This is the site, yeah.
I like it.
But
So you're
we
partnered with the frats, I see.
we transitioned into frat logos because we realized, what is our number one consumer base? Frat guys.
Right.
And so
Smart.
we should focus on them.
Dude, imagine like an adult fucking condom. It's your fucking bro. Do you provide so when you say like custom, do you also mean like custom material? Because as an individual who suffers from a latex allergy, I would need special condoms made for me.
You need special ones?
I'd be your first customer if you made some. Like, not they're expensive, bro.
Basically,
$400 to $1,000.
those are for like 1,000, basically.
Okay, why are they so
what-
expensive?
The problem we ran into is that our supplier can only make them in quantities of 250 or more, basically. And if you...
Well, you don't have to sell them in those large quantities. You could sell them like a pack of 5.
No, well, we can't, because basically what we do is it's like direct to consumer. So the lowest they can do is 10, and it's super expensive.
What do you mean direct to consumer? So they're gonna pay. They're
They-
gonna directly ship it to the customer, not to you.
Yeah, our manufacturer ships it directly to you, and so we have a super short shipping time.
Why do you do it like that?
Because of a super short shipping time, and because we couldn't find any other manufacturer really. But yeah, basically, the business model's kind of flawed right now. So we either have to find a new manufacturer that will make them for cheaper or less quantities, or we just have to really sell them well.
Wait, what's the flawed? Why is your business model flawed?
Because they're too expensive. They're too expensive, and they're
Yeah.
in such high quantities
So that's
that
the thing.
like an individual would never buy this. It would be the entire frat buying it, like, which is a
So you're
possibility.
doing B2B now.
Exactly.
Okay.
Which is not what we have time for, honestly. It's better if the website just functions on its own.
Yeah.
But this is just kind of like a little side quest, little like thing we did for fun. It's not like an actual passion.
So if I
project.
bought some right now, you'd be able to. I would get something. Like
Yeah.
you're fully like functional
Yeah.
now.
You'd get it.
Let's see. Scroll
If
through.
you
I want to
want
see.
that.
I mean, all the Lambda guys live on my floor, so I might surprise them with a little gift.
Yeah, it works. Yeah, you could get like a pack of 10
Tell
or
me more
something.
about all this. Okay, that's just premium quality. You're selling it. Okay.
And basically, me and the other founder, Diego Piers, we made the site, and he handles the site itself and the technology behind it, and then I handle like everything on the business end. So I designed all the condoms, and I'm in charge of marketing.
I have to say you've done quite a good job
Thank you.
with the marketing, at least, and the design.
Thank you.
The
We
SAE pack.
have an Instagram.
I'm gonna start telling more people about this. I don't think anybody
Sure.
knows about this.
Yeah, I mean the problem is like again like if people know about it, great, but I don't think anybody's gonna
It's
buy
so
it.
unique. Like this doesn't exist anywhere.
Yeah. It's a little like it's not the best thing to be like proud of in like a professional setting, I guess.
Well, yeah. What do you think
It's kind of a
what do you
joke.
think job employers will think when you have this on your resume?
It's not gonna be on my resume.
Then why are you doing it, man?
For fun.
Okay.
Like we said.
I respect
But-
it.
Yeah. But we have other businesses in the works that are the ones that I would put on my resume, so
Okay, what are some of those ones?
well, I can't tell you about that right now.
Okay,
'Cause
undercover.
It's still, it's
In
on
production.
the down low. Because we don't want people stealing our ideas. But
Nah, fair.
let's just
I
say
respect
in a year, everybody at Michigan's gonna be talking about it.
I believe it, man.
Yeah.
I believe it. I mean, you've done quite a lot of work.
A lot of frat
putting
guys know
together.
about this, so we did our job when it comes to getting the word out.
You have any Sayu condoms?
We do. It's on the left.
Where?
Yeah,
Like, can I see it on the
Epsilon.
screen? Oh,
It's
yeah,
red.
there.
Very vibrant.
I'm sure they know about it.
They do.
Yeah.
No, I literally this semester I rushed a bunch of frats just for the purpose of getting the word out about this, just to see what would happen.
It's marketing technique.
Marketing, exactly.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of awkward because they kind of caught on like this guy's just trying to sell us.
Did anyone buy
So,
anything?
No.
I would. I don't know.
Would you buy this? I feel like maybe if the treasurer was really into it and they used the budget to like supply them with condoms for a year, then it would be like that could happen. But
If I was like a degenerate fucking every weekend and I was like a pretty higher position in a frat, I would buy it.
yeah.
Like, I think that's worth my money. Like, at least a frat's money or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like, come on, $30 for 10. Have a little nice weekend with all the boys.
Yeah, man.
It's a great way of promoting sex too. It's a great when you're talking to a girl and you'd be like, "Yo, I got a little SAE fucking
Yeah.
condom. I know you want to see that shit."
And I mean, like, it just it represents like safety, you know.
Yeah.
So women, like, I feel like it's not a horrible thing to have in your chapter house.
So how does it look when it's stretched out?
How does I mean when you're using it? It's just the wrapper that's
Oh,
customized.
so the condom does not have it on it.
No.
What's the point, man?
What's the point? It's just you have it on the outside.
So it's not on the physical condom.
No.
So
Those
it's not
don't
a normal
exist,
plastic.
unfortunately.
Yeah, because I was confused about that. Like,
Yeah.
how the fuck would that work?
Yeah. It's not on the inside. It's just the outside. Because I mean, like, once you've opened it and you're using it, I don't think you really care about flexing your frat at that
I would,
point.
bro.
Oh yeah.
That's sick. It make the whole experience more fun. Oh, anyways, what is your vision for this, like, down the road?
My vision.
Like, do you want to get
Um,
like, if you do go back to colleges, you can have like all like the Big Ten schools have their own.
We were just worried about getting sued, or my other co-founder really was worried about getting sued if it blew up. Because it's like we don't own the trademark. Honestly, like, it could take a lot of work to eventually find the right manufacturer and to like actually start selling it. But I think at that point, like, my time is just better spent on other things,
Yeah.
like a legitimate like business, you know.
Well, yeah, I know you can't talk too much about those businesses, but we talked about like the spirit or of
Spirit of it?
the idea of business and entrepreneurship. Like, how did you get into this stuff? Like, what
Mm.
motivates you to go out there? And I mean, I know money's a big motivator, but what do you enjoy about working on these kind of projects?
I mean, I guess money's a motivator. I guess it's just like what money represents is like.
You can go back to the logo if you want.
It's like freedom over your own life, kind of. So, I hate the idea of a 9-to-5 job or really working for anybody else. I feel like that's just like, that's not a place in your life where you really have control over what you're doing, over your own vision. I feel like if you're the one that's telling other people, like, this is my vision and we're going to carry it out, that's just so much more like gratifying in life. Even if like you work for 10 years and you don't make any money, but it's like, you're struggling, but it's your vision, like it's your autonomy. That's why I'm attracted to it. So I think it's less about the money, it's more about like what the idea of that represents, and like just like freedom in general over your own life.
I see. So there's something that's fearful about not having control of the situation.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you wanna be in control of your own destiny, and like it really is almost impossible. Like no one can predict the future. You can't control other people. So yeah, I guess in terms of what I want in a career, I don't want to be like tied down to anything, or anyone's idea of what I should be doing. And entrepreneurship is really the only place where you can truly find that, because let's say one idea fails, you go to the next one, and then the next one, and then the next one. It's like, it's that embrace of change that you learn when you're an entrepreneur. That you, like, if you're working for someone else, eventually you have to settle for that. And you have to say, like, I'm a slave to this job. Not, like, I'm not doing this because I actually want to do it. I'm doing it because I need this job. Or I need this money. I need this raise. I need to impress my boss,
There is something beautiful about entrepreneurship, because the word is so specific, but you can honestly make it into anything you want. It can really just follow your wide, weird, unique interest, from fucking condoms to literally anything, man. Like you care about. What's up?
Like a podcast.
Like it could be a podcast. It could be college condoms. It could be like something with the environment. It could be something with politics. Like it could be anything. And I think it's so versatile that there's no other job out there that is so shaped and unique to who you are as a person. Because I mean, I think jobs are great, but there's a degree of confirmation in jobs. Like you do have a lot of autonomy in deciding what career path you want to go down, whether that be you want to become a doctor or a surgeon or hedge fund, whatever. You have control in that decision, but then when you make that decision, now you're in that box. But entrepreneurship can kind of mold around whatever unique, weird thing that you find interesting, and you don't have to tie yourself down to, like, let's say I started this podcast with 5 other people, and we're all equal members of the podcast. I would hate it so much more, because now all of a sudden, like, I have to listen to their ideas too. Like, I have to sit around, like, they have this random weird idea of, oh, let's go, like, walk around the football stadium and interview people. And that, like, people would probably have all these shitty ideas that I wouldn't fuck with, but the beautiful thing is that this is my vision, and I have all the control in it. And it seems to me that you also love that feeling of control over your own destiny.
And it's weird because it's like, in a lot of ways, it is so much more riskier. And you kind of, in that way, it's almost like less control. Like, I understand people who look for stable jobs. They want to be a doctor or an investment banker or something like that, because they need that stability to always have. And so they would look at an entrepreneur and say, you're not gaining control, you're giving it up. Like, you're throwing yourself into the wild for no reason. But I think, like, once you understand how to get past failure to actually make something work, it's like, once you have all that trial and error, then you get to the point where, like, you don't even need a job. And if you're on a team of people that take over your vision, you can just leave them and create something else. It's like even as an entrepreneur, like, obviously you can't build a business or a really good business on your own. So, like, I feel like you have to work with people, and you have to, like, you can't always be the only one in the room, like, telling everybody what to do, but at least, like, when you have that mindset, you're not doing it because you think you're subservient to them. You're just doing it because you think they might actually have good ideas that could help your vision, And so I think there's, like, a difference between, like, an entrepreneur in a group setting versus, like, someone that's at the job. That's and it's fair. Just like, I need to do what I got to do to get this raise or to be looked good from other employees. But when you're an entrepreneur, it's like, I'm only gonna listen to someone else if I I genuinely like think their ideas are good, and so that's what creates like actual change in the world. I feel like as entrepreneurs, like the world would not be where it is today without people taking crazy risks and thinking for themselves, and which other people would call it crazy, but
I agree. I mean, you're right. The entrepreneur does not become this sole person who's driving this giant change. There's people along the way who support that, and I think I even see myself going through that stage right now for the first time in this first month and a half of 2025, where I've added 3 members to my team now, and the beautiful part is that they give their input too, and they give me great ideas, and they share their advice and their thoughts and their visions for the podcast as well. And I think the difference is that as the entrepreneur, I can kind of see that and filter it and see like, okay, that makes sense. Let's try that out. That maybe is not aligned with the vision. Let's stay away from that. But so you still have the power as the entrepreneur, but it's even better when you have all these people around you sharing these great ideas who want to see it do well as well, who care about it as much as you do, and it can almost fuel it even better in a way. But you still have that control.
Yeah.
And I think your first point is also really interesting because it is very risky, and most entrepreneurs are broke, unfortunately. And I think the word control and freedom and power, like, they're very interesting words. I like the way Robert Greene defines power. He defines it as the control you have over your own life, which I think is interesting because money is power. You have a stable job, you're making $100K a year. That's quite a bit of money. Money equals power, and you need money. And I will always stand by that. I don't think when those debates come up about money makes you happy, whatever. I think you need money. You need money for stability, for control. But at the same time, you start to ask the question that Robert Greene poses. Do you have power over your own life? Do you have control over your own destiny? And when you're a slave to the job, and you need the job because it is your whole source of income and everything, and you have to play these political games in the office to be on the good sides of everybody, all of a sudden the question arises, like, sure, the entrepreneur route is more risky, and you might not even become successful, but at least you don't fall into that numb, dragging pain of waking up the next morning and hopping in that car, going to the parking lot, back to the factory, or wherever the fuck you are.
I mean, that's really it. Like, there's an extent to where money, like there's kind of a diminishing return on what money can give you for your personal satisfaction. So the reason everybody does want to be rich, or the reason people want to be rich, is because, like, what it represents, and that is, like, you have control over yourself, over your life, over how other people usually perceive you. And so it's like if you're trying to get to that, if you're just trying to go for money but you're doing it through a job, and then it starts to control you, then like you said, like, you're gonna lose control even if you do have money. So it's like, it's about how you get that, I guess. Mm-hmm. And so like with an entrepreneur, like, they're not doing it for the money, I feel like. Even if that's, like, off in the distance, like, oh yeah, one day I'm gonna make this amount of money and that's gonna, like, make me happier. Like, they have to be successful, you have to live on years of having no success, no money. And so it's like, that's not where the motivation comes from. Like, if it was just about getting paychecks, like, they would not be a successful entrepreneur. It's like the love of what they're doing, and the love of, like, creating something. That's the real drive. So.
Yeah, and I feel like I feel that a lot. I've noticed that in me since a kid, that I love creating things. I don't know if you feel the same way, but there's some joy I feel in seeing something develop and grow with time. Mm-hmm. There's something so satisfying about that. I mean, as a kid, I used to create these, like, abstract, weird, unique games for my sister to play, or, like, even our friends around town. I'm, like, probably in first grade. Mm-hmm. There's something so much fun about, like, getting this, like, Word document out and, like, planning all these rules of this game and putting it together. Like, that's always been in my nature, and creating things and seeing how they develop. And time and time again, I see myself working these kind of projects, like the podcast, and I could see how shitty episode 1 was, where I had a phone on a stack of books, and we're using the audio of the phone to transfer it. And I had, like, this table lamp shining in my face for lighting because I thought it was doing something. Mm-hmm. And you could see it develop with time and all the people who come along the way. And I think, at least in me, there's that joy of creating something that I feel satisfies me so much. I mean, do you feel the same way? Do you see patterns in your own life at all? Or?
Yeah, I mean, just, like, seeing something come together over the course of, like, many months or years is just, like, so satisfying. Like, it like, I would hate to have a life where you're just not working towards something. Like, and in any given like moment or day where I feel like today I didn't really focus on anything or like any like greater goal, like I just feel disappointed.
Do you feel disappointed right now?
No, not right now. I mean, some days are like for just like relaxing or having fun or socializing, I guess. But no, recently I've actually been very on top of things. I've been like, basically I've planned out the next like up until the next school year starts, what I'm gonna do until then.
That's like 6 months, right?
Yeah, I planned out like the next 6 months, like roughly. Obviously, I don't know what's gonna happen, but like, I've just planned out like right now I'm gonna work on this this stock pitch for this competition, and I'm gonna learn how to use like the certain like piece of technology for finance, and then after spring break I'm gonna get these certifications, and then during this time I'm also gonna be working on this other secret business,
Guys.
secret business, and
When
then
the business is successful, we'll have Xander back on.
and then by the exactly, and then by the time summer rolls around, I'm hopefully gonna be working with like coders to be making this business, and
It's funny because I had a similar idea recently.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about it.
Yeah, and then like over the summer I'll be like either at an internship or working a job or both, and then working on the guides for finance as well. So I've kind of like created this step-by-step journey, because I just realized like what's so much more important than like having like motivation is having like a plan, because like motivation is nothing without a plan. You're just going to be like chasing your tail, like wasting your time, like doing some random thing for like a month, and then you realize like, wait, there's no point in doing this, like why was I even doing this in the first place? So like by planning it out in the future, I feel like it's going to like lead my motivation where I want it to go. So that's what I'm focusing on right now.
So have you always been the guy that spends hours and hours behind like a Google Doc or like a notebook and just planning? Like, is that the type of person you are?
I would, yeah.
Because I feel like I'm the same way at times.
Definitely.
But do you ever find it difficult to follow it? You know, because there's some people who are great planners and not disciplined people. There's some people who are really disciplined, but maybe too disciplined, where they don't do obviously things that are so obvious that they should be doing based on intuition, but they're trying to follow the plan per se. Like how's your relationship with your plans when you actually make them? Like, do you feel like you're very good at executing them, following them perfectly, or deviating from them in a good way, or how does that end up working out for you?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, honestly, when you make a plan, I feel like it's almost better to make it more, to make the plan harder for yourself than you would think you could actually do, because then you usually fall short on your plan. That's what I find, for myself at least. And so
in terms of the goals or being able to keep up with it?
Just like the rate at which things are done, like just what it ends up looking like. Like maybe in a month you realize this thing that I really thought was important back then for the plan is actually becoming a waste of time. And so you kind of have to alter that. But I mean, yeah, like humans, one of our greatest curses is like cognitive dissonance. So we believe things.
What does dissonance mean?
Well, cognitive dissonance is the idea that what we believe and what we do are often two separate things, and we are contradictory. And so, like, we think my life would be so good if every day I went to the gym and I ate these foods and I put in all these hours. I stopped scrolling on TikTok or whatever. Like, we think in our heads, like, that's important. It even goes to, like, morals. Like, I would be a good person if every day I woke up and did this, and I donated money, and I volunteered. But then in our actions, a lot of the time, we don't do that. And so it's just like, yeah, we do things that are irrational because of it's just our nature to follow the path of least resistance. So it's like, in your life, you have to constantly be double checking that. And yeah, like you have to constantly be like updating yourself and saying like, am I doing what like the best I can do? And you're like, if you're honest with yourself, there's almost like there's no perfection. Like you're always going to be falling short somehow. But the more you remind yourself, the more you can start to approach that. And so it's like over the long run, you do get better. And I have gotten better. Like for example, like with weightlifting or something like that, like having like exercising, having a clean diet. When I started, which was like many years ago, probably when I got into high school, so I was like 14, I would constantly just like fall off my diet, fall off my training. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. But at this point, after 4 years of just constantly like reminding myself, it almost like changes your mindset. And so like at this point, like the idea of not sticking to my schedule is just like seems almost harder than actually sticking to it. Like it's so ingrained in my mind that just like what I eat, like how when I weightlift, when I go to the gym, it's just like on autopilot.
Yeah.
It's just because I've kept doing that.
Yeah, with the repetition, you get so much better with time. Do you sometimes feel like it's a bad thing? Obviously, for the most part, it's a good thing. You know, like you're now able to actually execute a plan if you set it out. You know, you're not falling under the chains of cognitive dissonance where you tell yourself you're going to eat this diet and then a weekend you're like, wait, what am I doing eating this pizza right now? Like, I fucked up. And you don't even realize you're doing it. It's almost subconscious. But now you've reached a point where it's almost so normal for you that it's not even difficult for you anymore. You can just go to the gym and eat clean and you're normalized and used to it. But do you think sometimes that can be a bad thing if you're such a slave to that routine where it prevents you from doing something that's almost like common sense because you're so scared you'll fall back in your old ways? Does that question make sense?
What do you mean like by common sense?
I feel like something I've struggled with is that something will be so obvious to me that this is what I should be doing in my life.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll be like, oh no, the plan says I can't do it.
Like what? Like
I think the best example was my senior year of high school.
Mm-hmm.
When I was probably the most deep into discipline. Definitely senior fall, I don't think there was a day, 7 days a week I slept at 9. Woke up at 5:30. I don't think I missed a day.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, by the time winter rolled around, I was so busy because I was taking like 4 APs. I was in the middle of wrestling season. I started podcasting, so I was releasing every week without missing a week on my strict routine. And I loved the routine, and I was really happy and fulfilled at the time. And by the time the spring rolled around, I was still running the routine. You know, wrestling season's over, exams are over. I got into Michigan. You know, I've built up all this success. But something in my brain is telling me that the routine is I have to follow the plan. And I did follow it for weeks and weeks. I'm still waking up at 5:30 in the morning. And even though I'm seeing everyone out on center campus playing
Mm-hmm.
spike ball and like throwing frisbee around, and I'm telling myself I can't do that. But then I started to think like, wait, why? My intuition is telling me so clearly I should go and hang out with my friends, but I'm not. And then I realized that, okay, maybe my intuition is more intelligent than the logic sometimes. And that's when I leaned into that. Made a great group of friends at senior spring and had a great time hanging out with them. But I just feel like the reason I struggled so much to break out of the routine is because there is something in my brain that worries if I fall out of it, then I'll become like my old self.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so do you feel like you ever struggle with that, or you find like you have a healthy way of balancing and distinguishing between what's good logic, what's good intuition, and kind of balancing surfing on those waves?
That's really interesting. I mean, that's like a lot to unpack. There's a lot of ideas there. But like, I mean, it's just starting with the idea of a routine and like what I was saying with the importance of planning. Like, that's why your routine is so important, because you will get to a point where you just need to blindly follow your routine, or else you will stop following it. And you will lose your discipline unless you just have a blind obedience to your routine. And so that's why before you start your routine, you need to like know 100% like this routine is worth it, and it's gonna have a benefit. Like, for example, like with a cutting diet or something, like you start a cutting diet because you know you're gonna look amazing, and then 2 months into it, you've hit a plateau. For like a week, you haven't seen any progress, and you're thinking about quitting. And so in that instance, would it be common sense to like go have dessert, to go have a normal meal, because it doesn't follow your plan? And to that, I would say, if from the start what you truly wanted, that end goal of like getting a less body fat or whatever, was what you truly wanted, then that's why you stick to it. So if you don't have a good enough plan once you start, then yeah, you could find yourself into this situation where maybe it's not even worth it to continue the plan. But what I will say is that if it is what you want, and if it is the right routine, then that's what differentiates people who are just going to live a regular average life from those who will truly be like extraordinary is that they will not give up on their routine. They will not stop, even if it seems insane, even if it's sacrifice socially, mentally, physically. They will not stop, and that's really the only way you can differentiate yourself, because like you look around you, like there's so many people in this world that are going to be smarter than you, that are going to be funnier than you, they're going to be taller, richer, better looking. What's the one thing you can control? And it's discipline, and it's not giving up. So, like, I think the problem in your case is that you don't trust in your plan enough, or maybe you don't have the right plan. And so that's when you have to, like, get back to the drawing board and say, what is this year going to look like? What is the next 5 years going to look like? And the less of a vision you have, the more of a chance that you're going to fall into something that doesn't actually help you. So it's like two things. It's like having this discipline, which is very, very hard, and having the right plan. And you can't be truly successful, I think, without both. It's going to be very hard if you can't have both. So that's what I'm working on all the time. I'm constantly thinking, like, is this what I actually should be doing right now? And then I also have to be worrying about, like, am I sticking to the plan? You have to do both at the same time, I feel like.
Yeah,
you know?
you need that. You definitely need to have both. And I think it's also about defining what does your ideal life look like. Like, the way you described it, where not only like the next 6 months, but the next 5 years. You know, I like to do this visualization every now and then about, like, I'll close my eyes and pretend the year is like 2076. I'm like, what? How old do I be? 2076. What are we in 2025? Like what? 70 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly 70. Yeah, like when I'm 70 years old, like what does my look like? Ideal life. And you just close your eyes and look at it, and you just keep going back, like 50 years from now, 25 years from now, 10 years from now, 5 years from now, 1 year from now, 6 months from now, tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then that helps me understand. That helps me go back to, am I just following the plan for the sake of it? Is this a good plan? And I think the question you asked that most applicable to that situation is, do I even have the right plan? And I think that matters a lot, because sometimes we just do things for the sake of doing them. Just kind of like you just get stuck in the job, you do it for the sake of doing it, without like stepping back and looking at the bigger picture. And I think another question I have for you is that cognitive dissonance, we all fall slave to it. Pretty much all of us at some point can relate to falling slave to it.
Yeah.
You know, all the time. Do you think with time, if you get better and better and better at controlling that or being aware of it, you can get better? It's like a muscle you develop, but you can get better at, I don't know how to describe it. You can get better at dealing with it over time, where like I think now that I follow my intuition in every decision I make, it's like this shift I've had. I feel like I've just been so much happier in life. Like whenever I feel like doing something, I just do it now. And it's almost scary to think about that, because if I always like did what I felt like doing back in the day, it'd be just like a bunch of shit. You know, but I feel like now I've developed the cognitive that muscle so much where like I know for a fact I'll never fall back into it. Like I've struggled with like convincing myself of that, but now I've like convinced myself that it's been so much time that I don't think I'll ever fall back into it. So I can like let myself be free to just like, I remember Sunday morning 2 weeks ago, I woke up, I went outside, saw the beautiful snow, and I just had this like shocking like spark go through my veins and blood, and like, you know what, I just want to go powerlifting. And my old self would be like, no, you need to plan it out, you need logic, you can't like deviate from the plan, we're bulking right now. But now I'm like, no, fuck that. My intuition tells me it's correct, and I changed it. And I feel like I've been so happy, like having this new purpose in my life. The last 2 weeks is going powerlifting. Now I have this dream of competing, and I feel like after a while, at least in my opinion, you can get so good at dealing with the cognitive dissonance that like now I don't feel bad when I deviate from my plan. You know, I kind of, at least for me, like I do make the plans, but I let them kind of become who they want to be with time, and I've kind of like stepped back a little bit and stopped stressing about it. Like let it do it what it wants to do. You know, there's a lot there.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a time for, like, being rigid in your life and following a very strict thing, but, like, also you can't live your life with regret, you know? Like, there's a lot of things, like, day to day that you just can't predict, and you just kind of have to seize that opportunity, because, like, you know, we're young, we're in college, like, we're never going to get these years back. So that's another big battle that, like, I deal with a lot, too, is, like, how am I going to use these years like the best way possible? And what I mean is like these are your prime years to have fun and to socialize and to make friends and to make once-in-a-lifetime experiences. But it's also the time in your life where you're setting up the rest of your entire life. So it's like you need to balance like your career and your professional life with like just experiencing life, you know? You can't like neglect that, I feel like. So yeah, that's what I've been working on too. Cuz it's like I want to go out and have fun and have experiences, you know. You know, maybe go to a party once in a while. But like where does that fit in the plan? You know?
Some of the stuff you can't even plan, you know.
Yeah.
I guess you could, but I mean, we've been here for what, 6 months now? How's that played out, that balance?
Honestly, last semester was kind of like for the first time in my life where I really like stopped worrying about like all these strict goals, I guess, and like especially my academics. And I just like I stopped worrying about that, and for once in my life just like had these experiences that I'd never had before. You know, met so many new people, like just kind of let myself live life, you know, and have fun. And I think a lot of people have that coming into college. And for me, like now in the future, it's kind of dug a hole that I have to get back from, in terms of all the work that I have to put in now going forward, and just the things that I could have done back then to prepare myself more. But if you ask myself, like, do I regret it, I would still say no. Because I think, like, those experiences you can never get back. And those memories, like, you're going to have forever. So there's a value in doing things just for the sake of doing them, not because you plan them, but just because it comes, like, straight to your face, and you have to be ready to, like, to do it or let it go forever. So I feel like last semester I definitely stopped worrying about like things when it came to like school, you know, and like that's probably something I shouldn't have done, but also what I got out of that is kind of invaluable. So I don't know, but now, you know, I'm gonna be more locked in. You know.
So when you envision the next 3 years, do you see yourself rotating between these eras of rigid era, play hard era, or do you think you're gonna integrate them into one, or just do whatever the fuck ends up happening?
You know, I really don't know. I don't know what the next 3 years are gonna look like, honestly. I've only really thought as far as the end of this summer, and I have vague notions of what I want to do. But part of that is just because it's very much up to chance what is going to happen. Like, let's say this business goes really good.
The second one or the college condom one?
The second one.
Okay.
Then I'll probably work on that. And, like, in the back of my head, that's my dream, is to maybe not even finish school and drop out, because I found it something so successful that it became my life. But you can't plan on that. Like, you can't say, like, oh, that's a guarantee. That doesn't even make sense. So then if that doesn't happen, then maybe finance will be my thing and recruiting for that. And maybe that will take over my life.
Are you in Ross?
Oh, no, I'm not.
Okay.
I'm in a Ross club, but
yeah,
no, I'm an econ.
Nice.
I don't know, like, when it comes to, like, relationships, like, you can't plan that either. Like, maybe I'll find the one and then want to get married, or maybe I just won't. And maybe, you know, the one is, like, 5 years down the line. Like, you can't plan any of this.
I forgot where you stood on the debate that we had with Nico that one time in the dining hall. Do you think there's a one or what?
Oh, yeah. Do I think the one exists?
Yeah.
Yeah, when he was confused about that, because, like...
Nico?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was like, what do you mean you believe in the one if you're not, like, very religious or anything?
Yeah.
Like, you don't believe in, like, fate, necessarily. And so I was like, well, okay, I don't believe in, like, a one, like, one person out of 7 billion people being for you. What I meant was, like...
Many ones.
Yeah, there's going to be a type of person, or there's going to be, like, a very specific type of person that you meet, and they're all you need, you know, to be happy. and you're willing to commit to them 100% and never need anyone else. That's kind of what I meant. And like, it's not the one. Like, obviously, like, there's going to be a lot of people that might satisfy that, and everybody's different and nobody's perfect, definitely. But I think that there is a very small group of, like, amount of people out there that if you meet them and you can fall in love with them, then, and if the pieces fall together, that they are going to be the one. So yeah, I believe in that.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I think you also said that there might be many the ones, but you're only gonna run into like one of them, right? So, do you think things always work out the way they're supposed to, for everyone?
I don't know. It's like, behind that question is like, what is it? Like, what do you mean by supposed to happen? Like, that implies that there's some greater, like, design, you know?
Yes. The way when I say the word supposed to,
Mm-hmm.
I think there are people who at the end of their life look back and it's like, oh yeah, like everything kind of worked out perfectly. You know, like along the way there was pain and suffering and mistakes and regret, but somehow at the end I'm happy and somehow everything contributed to that in some way. So when I say worked out the way they're supposed to, I mean, does everyone end up at the end of their life in post hoc rationalization look back and say, yeah, it feels like it worked out how it was supposed to?
Look, I mean, like, the nature of life is that it has a lot of pain and tragedy, and I think most lives are probably tragedies unless they reframe it in their mind. So I feel like if you have the right mindset about life and if you have such a strong philosophy about life that anything that comes your way is just part of it, then I believe that having that right now will guarantee your life is not that way, and it goes the way it's supposed to go or whatever. So I think, like, you can secure that right now. Like, if I have the right mindset, it doesn't matter what's to come in life, even like if it could be truly like horrific, more than you can imagine. If you have a certain mindset, I feel like that's the only way you can break free of that. And then, like, obviously, like, when you look at happiness and satisfaction, it's also very relative, because you have billionaires who are probably going to be super depressed at the end of their lives, and you have people that are in absolute poverty who might be super happy at the end of it. And you have people that have gone through war and crime and loss that might find satisfaction at the end, and you might have people that get everything they want their whole life and they're just bored and they haven't found meaning. So I think it's all so relative, and it's all up to your own mindset, you know? Like, that's what it comes down to.
Do you think that everyone, no matter how dire the situation, has the ability to reframe it, no matter how bad the situation is? Like, you said most lives are tragedies, because every single tragedy able to be reframed is not a tragedy.
I don't know, I mean, I feel like either every life is a tragedy or none of it is, you know? It kind of depends on that's what I mean by the mindset. It's like, if you have, if in your head you know why, you know, we're alive, and why every life kind of fits into some type of meaning or purpose, then every life, in a way, is meaningful. And if you don't have that, then it's possible that no life could be meaningful, you know? So it's like, but yeah, in terms of, does someone have the ability to change their mindset? I think absolutely.
Every single person.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of, I mean, I wouldn't say it's easy, but I think it's possible for everybody. And, like, I don't know how that would just happen naturally or organically. It might take someone to push you into that, but I think it's always possible.
Yeah. That's interesting. 'Cause I feel like I was talking about this with my friend last night walking to Chipotle. Was it last night?
Chipotle.
I think it was last night.
Yeah.
Yeah, because dinner was sucked in Mojo. Did you have dinner at Mojo yesterday? It's pretty bad.
No, I didn't. I didn't
Yeah,
have time.
so Southwood?
No, I didn't eat dinner yesterday.
Okay. Yeah, we're walking to
busy.
Chipotle, and we kind of talked about something similar, and I told him that I do really believe in fate, because every single of the 87 conversations I've had have in some way led to me connecting with other person in some unique way, but also I feel like everyone looks back at their life as if like it all kind of worked out in a way. Like no matter who I'm talking to, whether it just be another college student I'm friends with, or some CEO of some company, or some athlete, or some random person I met on the street. Like every single person I ended up talking to, 87 conversations. It almost felt like to them when they envisioned their life, it all kind of worked out the way it was supposed to. And that kind of gave me hope because there's so many different people I've talked to, and the fact that everyone kind of looks at it so positively gave me hope that there's potential that no matter where the hell you are in life, everyone kind of does have the ability to reframe it because whether you had the money or didn't, like they all had the ability to reframe it in their way and look at their life, and that's what I kind of believe, that everyone's capable of it. But I also realize that my podcast, there's a kind of selective bias. There's the kind of person that I tend to be around, and no one's gonna want to come and talk on a podcast unless they have like that pride as well. And a lot of people, if imagine some random person who does not have pride, why would they want to come on and speak? And that's not really thought about it, and that's when it got me questioning. Okay, does fate is all this kind of bullshit, or does literally every single person have that ability to reframe? Every single person has the ability to kind of look at it positively, even in some random guy that, like maybe some veteran guy who lost his voice and served and maybe lost his family or whatever. Like, is everyone able to do it? Like, I don't know. Are we lucky, or is there something in the human brain that allows us to look that way, or I don't know.
I mean, there's practical mindsets, and there's just the philosophy side of thing, about like believing in like a greater meaning or something like that. So I think at the end of the day, like the best mindset is just a philosophy for why you're here or why you're alive. Because then you're like truly indestructible if you know why you're here. And that's not an easy thing. And you might even be able to argue that can't even exist really, or can't even be proven, like a one meaning in life or whatever. But I guess that's the most practically like beneficial mindset, is something like that concrete.
Yeah. Like
waking up and being like, not even just looking at things that happen day to day, but just looking at your entire life and just being like, I know why I'm here.
Why are you here?
Why am I here? I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure if I have an answer yet for that, That's
despite not having an answer, do you still feel fulfilled?
Fulfilled in life. Yeah, I think so. I don't know. I think, like, if I died today, like, I wouldn't be happy about that. But that's,
you won't be, or you will be?
I wouldn't be happy about that. But that's kind of from a frame of view of, like, myself if I didn't die today in the future. So, like, I guess if you have that understanding of, like, why we're all here, and you understand, like, at any moment life can be taken away from you, it's all chaos, like, then you should be, like, ready to be fulfilled right now,
And I feel like being aware of your death makes you more fulfilled. I think that awareness, in some way, when you wake up the next morning, kind of look around and live your day-to-day life and enjoy it, it changes everything. That's why I feel like combat sports and stuff that really put you so close and so deep into pain, and almost like you're seeing death in front of you, like some guy's trying to like take you down or whatever in an MMA fight. It's almost like you live with a different kind of fulfillment for the other hours of the day, and just being aware of your death, like being peace with your death, because there's a million things more I want to achieve in life. There's a million things you want to achieve in life, but I still feel like I'm at peace with death. Like, even if it happened today, like, oh yeah, there's all the millions of things I want to achieve, and obviously I don't want to die today. I want to live to be like 100 or something,
Mm-hmm.
But in a weird way, I'm at peace with it, where it's not like if it's coming at me, I'm gonna start stressing out, and like my last waking moment's gonna be like me stressed out or unfulfilled. Like, I feel like my last waking moment will be me just doing what I do at peace and bliss. Like, I feel like I've filled the hours in the day with that. But there is something unique about like being aware of your own death.
Yeah. 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 I mean,
sorry.
Yeah. I mean, alongside that, like, yeah, because it's kind of weird, like, back to, like, the fate conversation or whatever, like, it's kind of weird, like, defining what that really means, because, like, I ultimately believe that we live in, like, a chaotic universe, and it's just a bunch of probabilities clashing with each other. And there's no way to predict the future, obviously, and I don't think there's any like real rhyme or reason to what happens. But it's like for example, if you didn't go to the University of Michigan for whatever reason, then you would have this whole different trajectory of your life. You would not have met any of these people. And that could have easily have happened for some random reason, just because of just the nature of how things are. Like, if you made that one different decision, it would change everything. And there are a million of those decisions happening, like, every day. Just, like, all the time, little things that we don't even notice. So it's like, if we're just, like, lost, and it's just, like, all very chaotic, like, where's the fate and where's, like, the purpose in that? And I think that, in a weird way, that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. Like, the way I look at it is, like, if you look at it in the long term, like, if you just keep zooming out, then everything does kind of have a purpose. Like, if you meet someone, you don't know why you met them yet, but maybe in 70 years it will have revealed itself, you know? And so it all just comes back to, like, why you're here in the first place. And so even if it's all chaotic, even if it's all random, if there's, like, a reason that randomness happened from the first place, then you can be okay with it. And then, in a way, it was all kind of fate. Even though maybe nobody designed that, like, you can't predict it, but maybe it's still, in a way, like, kind of like fate, you know? Just if there is a reason.
And I think the unique thing about the human brain is that, sure, the universe is chaotic, and just probabilities clashing, and random things happening, and random decisions. Like, the decision I made to do this right now maybe changed my whole life trajectory just now, and probably did somewhat, you know, never know.
Yeah.
But I think despite that, like, okay, let's say I didn't go to Michigan, and different trajectory, or my two friends I was sitting with in the lounge of our sophomore year high school dorm did not mention wrestling, I never would have joined the team, you know, like, there was random small things that happen that change your whole trajectory of who you become. I still think that your brain is really, really good at building stories, and it's really, really good of making the randomness of your life into a perfect storyline. You know what I mean? Like, there's something in our brain that connects the dots and says, oh, that means that, and this means that, and that led to that. And despite it all being a million random decisions, our brain looks back and builds into a story. I mean, that's what our brain's amazing at. Humans are unique from every other animal because we can build stories, which is insane. You know, the story of the University of Michigan, the story of the United States, they're all stories. Story of capitalism.
Yeah.
They'll believe it. Changes everything. So I do think that that's unique about us. Like, if I have a completely different life, my brain will turn that into the new story. But at the same time, when we talk about the probabilities, I feel like there's so many things that happen in life that are such a low probability, and so many coincidences that have happened to me and other people I've talked to, that when I hear those stories, I'm like, if you really think about the probability of that, it's so low that it's almost like, how the fuck did it happen? How the fuck did I experience so many coincidences? I'll give you an example. How about you tell your story about you and this girl that Jackson ended up meeting? You want to tell a story? God. It was. I saw Jackson's name up there, and I just remember the story. And tell me the story. I want to hear it again. I think Teo got to hear this too. It's pretty crazy.
I mean, look, I don't think this is proof that, like, things happen for a reason.
It's sort of fun to tell.
But yeah, basically, on the first day I'm in Michigan, in the bathroom, I meet this man named Jackson. And so he's just like, I meet him, and I'm like, yo, what's up? I'm Xander. I'm from Portland. And then he's like, oh, Portland, that's weird. I know, like, I've only met one other person in my life from Portland, Oregon. And I'm like, oh, who is it? Like, maybe I'll know them. And then
Portland's a big city, too.
Yeah. And then he says who it is. I don't know if I should say her name.
You don't have to. We'll call her Elizabeth.
Her name is not Elizabeth. But he says her name, and I'm like, what? Because he says her first name. And I'm like, oh, that's funny. I only know one person with that first name.
I only know one Elizabeth.
This is her last name. And he's like, wait, that's her last name. And so he pulls up her Instagram. No, I pull up her Instagram because he doesn't believe me. He thinks I'm making this up. I pull up her Instagram. It's the same girl. Turns out, like, he like took her virginity or something in the Greek islands or something. And this is like.
Can you expand on that? The Greek islands, where'd that come from?
That's just like his vacation spot or something. Like she was on vacation, he was on vacation, happened to be at the same time. And this is like someone I've known since kindergarten, my whole life. So it was really strange.
And I was on a boat. Yeah, add some context in it.
He was on a boat?
They were on a boat.
I didn't even know that.
And what was your relationship with this woman? I think that's important too.
I just knew her like since kindergarten, and then I had like a weird talking stage with her, like
And
before
then-
prom, and then kind of never saw her again.
And you took her to prom, no?
Yeah.
But, okay. Yes. Fun story.
It was just it's just random coincidences, but
But there's so many of those coincidences, man. There's so many of them.
yeah. But then you think about how many coincidences don't happen, and it's kind of like it's like a bias. Like you only notice things that are very interesting or worth telling because they're worth telling. And so like how much of your life is not worth telling, or like you wouldn't, or that we're not talking about in this podcast? Like probably 99.9% of it.
Right.
So the probability kind of matches. It's just we have this selection bias, I think.
Let's build a probability here. Like, let's say that, I agree with the selection bias point. That's correct.
Uh-huh.
Let's say the probability of that event happening.
Mm-hmm.
I'm bad at estimating big numbers, but let's say like 1 over a million. I don't know. That's pretty fucking rare.
It may be, yeah.
Right? And let's think about like how many of those like 1 in a million events have happened, either to me or people I've talked to. I think if you calculate the probabilities, it's like it's more likely that they've like it's. I think by the I'm exaggerating. I'm like what do you call it? What's the word? I can't say for certain what the probabilities are, but
Mhm.
I think that the fact that they happen so frequently, it's almost at such a heightened rate that it's almost as if it's not a probability. Does that make sense? Like
So you're saying
by
they
if it's
happen.
1 in a million, then I shouldn't have met like 10 people who've had 1 in a million stories, you know?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, but yeah, we can't calculate the
Yeah, we
probability.
can't
is the thing.
calculate that.
Like the probability of common things might be 1 in a million if you just compare it with the other million things that could have happened technically. You know.
Yeah, that's fair. So you don't believe in fate at all, or you're kind of open, or you don't know?
I just think I just think it has a different definition of what people normally think of it as, you know? Like I don't think there's just someone who kind of drew up your life in a little like room and then like set it into action.
Well, I don't think that either.
Yeah. So then like what do you mean by fate? Like
Yeah.
like who designed that? Or how is it designed?
I don't think there's any individual human who can even think about how it works.
Yeah.
I think it's something that's so complex that either no one's thought of it yet or no one's even capable of thinking about it. But considering all these random things that have happened, there is something out there, you know, some force, some power that has in some way done something to create either this universe, or that's something so unique about how human lives end up working out the way they do.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say that to open your eyes maybe to like what I'm thinking, like we don't really know how higher dimensions work at all, you know?
Mhm.
We don't even know what aliens might look like, as an example. You know, we could speculate that aliens look exactly like us, but they probably don't. Aliens probably exist as like a completely different entity. Maybe they exist as thoughts and ideas. You know, what if thoughts are like a different kind of entity with consciousness that kind of exists in our brain? They could, you know? Like we don't really have a clear definition of what life is. And in the same way, we don't really have a clear definition of like purely how fate is. Like no one's sitting in a room up there making the storyline and like controlling like a video game controller. It's like it's probably not that, but there's something that in some way the whole universe is like its own entity that kind of like it moves and it's everything kind of fits perfectly to a puzzle piece, you know?
Mhm.
And I can't tell you what it is. I can't even try to confabulate or process what it would be like. But all I think is that there's something bigger that we don't understand. That
Yeah.
it's not just randomness and numbers and survival and reproduction. It's not all it is. It's also something else that we just don't know.
You know, I actually agree with you. But I think like there's no way to really prove that. And it also brings a lot of like problematic things along your like your process of logic to find that conclusion, because, like you said, humans, like the brain, is good at telling stories, right? And no matter what type of life you live, you're going to reframe it in a way that it creates satisfaction. And so part of that is because, like, humans, or the brain itself, is just a product of evolution. And so to have a higher level of thinking like the brain has, and to be able to have it not self-destruct, whether that's just like killing itself or not advancing society or something like that, in order to have that, our brain is wired to believe in meaning and to create meaning. So this conclusion that you believe in, that's kind of perfect as an evolutionary mechanism to keep you alive and to like stop you from ending it all, to to be an entrepreneur, to tell other people to keep going. Like, it's a perfect evolutionary mechanism. Like wouldn't you agree? Like,
Yeah.
Like, if you were to design the human race to keep going, you would design them to believe no matter what that there's meaning, whether that's religion or just fate or having it all fit together. So it's kind of a very problematic thing, because that belief, you have to kind of realize, like, it's just a very, very complex evolutionary mechanism to keep you here. You know, like, it's not actually a source of truth. It's a source of bias, you know. And that doesn't like necessarily mean it's not true, but you have a lot to make up for when it comes to proving that. And it's kind of unfortunate, because it's like, if we theoretically found a theory that explained everything, how everything works, or a philosophy that proved like meaning, would it actually be true, or would it just be some really, really advanced way to keep us here, you know?
Yeah, and I 100% agree with you. Like, and I'm the one who brought up that point about the brain as well. And I've, reading about how the brain works, everything you say is correct. You know, like, there's all these small intricacies that I can even tell you stories about things our brain does. And like, one great example is that when you're walking by yourself at night and you hear the wind blow and the leaves blow by, your first instinct is someone's behind me. First instinct. Go try it for yourself. Go walk in the alleyway at night. Not playing. Your first instinct is that someone's always behind me. If you hear a ruffle in the bushes when you're hiking, if you hear a strange noise when you're sitting by yourself, your first instinct is someone's there.
Yeah.
Why is that true? Because in the case where there isn't someone there, oh well, you're fine. In the case where there is someone there, but you're just sitting there, whatever, it's the wind, and someone is there, and you get stabbed in the back and killed, well, you're dead, right? So again, that's an evolutionary survival tactic for your brain to be always safe, that you always think things are there when they're not actually there. So our brain is already good at that, you know, like, we're walking in the forest and the leaves ruffle. The first thing is there's probably a squirrel there. You know, there's probably something there. So we're really good at thinking about entities that are not actually there, which is why humans are so deep into religion. You know, like, we'll see some strange thing happen in nature that we're like, oh, we swear we saw this one thing, you know. Something happened last night with the clouds that I promise you I've never seen this before. The lightning, oh, it's Zeus, I'm telling you. You know, we're really good at thinking of entities that are not actually there, and we're really good at making stories. And here you have human history with religion and the billions of religions that have been made because of entities we claim we saw. Mm-hmm. At the same time, I think it is a little bit egotistical for humans to be like, we figured everything out.
Yeah.
You know? That, oh, yep, we have, because of the science revolution and because we're the smartest in the world and the universe, we figured it out. That's the star, that's the sun, that's science, that's physics, that's laws, that's probability. We figured it out.
Yeah.
I don't think we figured it out. I think the stuff we can't understand. I don't think we're the smartest. I think we're like level 3, there's probably level 10s.
Yeah.
So at that level, I'm not saying that proves meaning, but that thought experiment shows that there are higher degrees of things that we can't comprehend. And, you know, it could be that something in this whole thing is orchestrated and we just haven't figured it out yet. And again, it could be the one part of my brain trying to protect me. It could just be the fact that we're maybe stupider than we think. But I think the fact that there is something bigger than us gives me a little bit more peace, because that means that there's more levels to things and there's more things that we just can't understand. You know, we haven't figured it all out. It's not just evolution, you know?
Yeah, and obviously I hope you're right, because I would want nothing more than that. But you can never prove it, really. And, like, yeah, what you're saying about, like, humans just proclaiming, like, we figured it out is definitely just wrong and egotistical. like, for example, like before Einstein came along, they thought they'd figured out physics, and they thought like gravity is a force, like time is linear, and then Einstein comes along and is like, no, like space and time are actually the fabric of the universe. You can bend time, you can go forwards and backwards in time. Like gravity's not a force, it's a direction, you know, and like physicists will be able to describe like how crazy of a revolution that was in understanding. And so what if that were to happen again and again and again, you know? So we have the best guess, but it's still a guess, you know? And like, so that also like ties back to just like things we have like in our everyday lives too, that we have to like trust in or like believe, like maybe like hopefully this isn't just some evolutionary mechanism. Hopefully it's actually real. And like I think about that a lot when it comes to like romance, you know, meeting people. It's like, is this like person for me? Like, is this my like soulmate? Like, am I in love with this person, or is this just like my brain being hardwired to want to reproduce with someone?
Yeah.
You know?
I feel like there's no point overthinking that, you know? I feel like if you're with someone you really fuck with, and you'll know. And I only say that because of experiences that my friends have gone through. That for them, it's almost obvious. Like, is she the soulmate? Like, who the fuck knows? Maybe she is, maybe she isn't. But I just know that I fuck with her a lot, and I want to be with her. And I think people who are not satisfied in their relationship will know that too. So it's not always just the fact that my brain and body want to reproduce. You know, I feel like you will know if you're with someone that you can spend time the rest of your life with. You know, and there's so many things that contribute to that. It's not just one thing. You know, it's a mixture of values and interests and personality and attractiveness. Like, there's a million different pillars that are going on at the same time. You know.
What is your ideal woman or partner?
My ideal woman.
Mm-hmm.
Shorter than me.
Okay.
So that takes
That's
us
fair.
I don't know. I was talking this with my friend last night too at Chipotle. I can't have her be taller than me.
Yeah, me neither.
I don't know. It's just feels weird. I just instantly lose all attractiveness of her if she's taller than me.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I mean, there's a million different intricacies in that. I mean, there's, and physical attractiveness is important to me. I'm not just gonna be like, oh, I just want values. Like, physical attractiveness is important, which means I gotta match that too. So we're working on that too. But I think I just want someone who understands me. And I feel like I think I understand myself, but sometimes I don't. But if I could find someone who just understands me and can just like totally like will just hear me talk and like hear the way I look at the world, and that makes perfect sense to them, and that's how they see the world too, I think that's perfect.
Yeah.
You know? Can understand me and values, it's easy to put on paper that I want this value, I want that value. But I feel like if someone understands you, then the values kind of are taken care of. You know?
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, that's some ideal perfect scenario. I mean, I feel like some of my friends have partners who just fully understand them, and some of them have been with a lot of different girls in the past too, but until they found someone who just for some reason understands them perfectly. Like, it's not like I'm a different person when I'm around them, you know? It's just like I'm me. And I feel like no fear or no resistance in being me when I'm around them, because they understand me so well, and in some way I can understand them too at the same level.
Yeah, I mean, I've had like people in the past where I feel like the only thing that was wrong is that they didn't try to understand me, and like maybe on their side everything was right, but they just didn't see that, like they didn't show interest in me, or they didn't care about me in the long term. And so like at the end of the day, like that's actually I think the most attractive thing for me, or the most attractive thing someone can do is just show interest
In you?
Yeah, because it's so like it's almost in a way it's just like vulnerable, but it's also just like I don't know, it's just like it's just honest and genuine, and it's just like something that by showing it you're kind of like letting a piece of yourself be vulnerable, but it's for the other person. It's just like a type of sacrifice that just like is really meaningful for me. And so like I don't know, and obviously like that doesn't mean, you know, you want someone who's like crazy obsessive over you or something, or someone who like doesn't have independence or their own life, but just like showing that you actually care or you want to get to know them, even if that takes time, like that's the main thing. Because I think there's so many like types of people out there. There's so many types of personalities. There's not just like one person that, you know, you could be really happy with. But if that person is willing to understand you as well as you're understanding them, you know, it's like, it's in that understanding that, like, that's what love is, you know. It's not like a set person, like, oh, this person meets every check off my list, so now I'm in love with you. Like, that's not how it is. Like, you can actually be in love with someone if you know all their flaws, if they know all your flaws, and if you're okay with that, and if you find yourself just absolutely, like, attracted to them and drawn to them, and you want to commit. Like, that's what love is. It's a much deeper thing than like a checklist, you know.
I agree. I'm glad we're on the same page about that. Seems like we both value the exact same thing.
Yeah.
It's just like understanding, but also just like someone who looks at my life and is like, that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like someone who really fucks with my life. Just come on the adventure too, you know.
Yeah. And that's honestly tough to find these days.
You think so?
I think it is. I've had a lot of experience with that.
Yeah.
And that's always the one thing that falls through. It's just like, at the end of the day, are they in it for the long run? Do they actually care about like getting to know you, or are they just kind of using you as like a means to like not be lonely, or to you know, waste some time to because they're bored, because they were hurt in the past, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. Like, is it hard to find these days? Because that's something that I tell myself sometimes, but then I just tell myself I'm probably just making excuses. Like, how many girls have you gone up to in the last month? Like, you're probably not, if you go up to like 3 in a month, like, you're probably not likely to meet the one, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I feel like, to a degree, like, if we just look at the situation of American society, I can understand why me and you in moments can feel like it's difficult to find. I mean, let's look at the University of Michigan first of all. I mean, there's a lot of great people here, don't get me wrong, but I think that the more and more the girls I end up encountering end up falling into 2 boxes, either like sorority or just like engineering. Like, they're either like so deep in the sorority life, which I don't understand.
Types than that.
And then there's like the other girl I always end up running into is like someone who's so like driven and purposeful in their own life, but then it's like, I don't know, I'm okay with that with people, but I don't know if that's who I want to date personally. 100%. I've met people who are outside of that box, but just more and more time again, yeah, I think you'll fall into. Over here, I just keep meeting the same kind of person. Maybe that's on me. But I also think that value of like, I think you described it as like someone who like genuinely cares about you, who like at least tries to. You know, you feel like you've tried to care about other people. So you said that you struggle to find someone who also shares that. I mean, where do you think that comes from? Do you think that comes from just like values of American culture? You know, like, I think one thing that pops out to me about American culture is like the divorce rate's like 50%. I mean, we don't develop properly without 2 parents. That's just how it is. Definitely when you talk about your deeper attachment styles and insecurities and sense of self, that comes from having 2 parents, you know, so.
Yeah, I mean, like, my parents are divorced, so I've been through that.
Was it early on or was it later on?
I was like 12 or something.
Okay.
So it was kind of rough.
Did you have siblings too, or is it just you?
I had a younger brother. So that was rough for a few years, and that did kind of, actually, I think that probably did shape me in a lot of ways. Like, a lot of people who have parents who divorced, I think it did the opposite of what it did for me. Like, they usually stop believing in love or a soulmate or marriage at all. But for me, it kind of did the opposite, because I guess I still see my parents as very compatible. And I still think the whole thing was just a horrible, like, series of events that didn't have to happen. And so it kind of, I grew up thinking my parents are soulmates. And so.
You still do?
I don't know. But I think that ingrained in me the sense that it exists.
So early on, that you had those first decade of life, it was enough for you to secure that idea somewhere back in your brain.
Yeah. It just was my childhood. I don't know. Yeah. I think that's the way I see it. Or maybe it's, that's what I'm most afraid of, like falling out of love with someone, or like finding someone you think is the one and then you realize they weren't. That I'm just like, I'm so afraid of that happening that I have to believe that there's a way around that, you know? Because if there's no way around that, then there's really no point at all even trying, you know?
Yeah, I think there are ways. I think there are things that you have in your own control. Like I feel like we create a lot of problems in our life that we can avoid. You know, it's not just about do I still love this person. You know, it's something that's deeper than that I think leads to divorce. You know, and I think just valuing family and valuing that the fact that we're gonna have problems and we're gonna work through it.
Mm-hmm.
I think, I mean, we could look at countries around the world, right? Divorce rates are drastically different in various countries. You know, America is like 1 and 2, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
You can check the stats actually, Taylor. That'd be cool. America is like 1 and 2. Search up like Japan and search up India, right? I think America's 1 and 2. Japan is like 1 in 100.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that's necessarily because American culture is so different. Like, there's a lot of like social, like legal factors. Like,
I think it's culture.
well, yeah, but like in some countries,
Yeah, go to search up
there's
U.S.
like
Sorry.
arranged marriage, and you
Right,
can't
right.
really.
I'll get into that
divorce,
too.
you know?
I agree with that.
But
Here, search up U.S. first. What is this math? Okay, so that's what 4.5. That's it. It can't be 2.3 per thousand. Search up like U.S. divorce rate.
2.3.
That doesn't make any sense.
It is.
U.S. divorce rate.
Uh,
It's like 40 something, almost 50%. For search out like Japan divorce rate. It's like 1 in 100. Right. Whoa. Search up India. It's like 1 in 10,000. 1% per 1,000 people.
what does that even mean?
That's 1 in 10,000. But no, your point is correct, right? Yeah, your point is correct. There's a lot of
It doesn't
legal.
make sense that culture causes that.
You don't believe that
alone.
culture causes it?
Well, not alone.
Not alone. I agree with your point. I definitely
yeah.
think that there are governmental things that cause it, and there are definitely like maybe even cultural. Or maybe it's not always a good thing. You know, you can get into a bad marriage,
Mhm.
but because of hard culture or because of like legal ramifications and stuff, like you're stuck in the marriage. And if you're in a bad marriage, you're kind of fucked. And I don't agree that it's always a good thing to have a society structure where you almost can't divorce. You know, you can get in a bad situation. If you arrange marriages, you don't have much control of the situation. You know, if there's a legal difficult process of being divorced in certain countries that exist, it's hard to get a divorce. But the more and more like when I visit places around the world and when I talk to people from different cultures, the more and more I realize that culture plays a much bigger role in the reason why countries are different from each other than government does. I strongly believe that. Like
Yeah.
when I've visited countries around the world and just like observed how life is like there. One great example is in Japan. I didn't see a single homeless person.
Mhm.
Is it because of government? It could be. But the more and more I'm realizing like how the values of Japanese people and what they believe in, what they care about, there's so many different aspects of cultures around the world that you know, I genuinely believe talking to people from like Asian countries that family is valued so highly there. Like if you get divorced, it's almost like everyone in society looks down upon you. In America, it's like, oh yeah, you're probably likely to get divorced 1 or 2 times before you find the one. I think culture plays a huge role.
Mhm.
And in certain countries around the world, people look down upon you if you divorce, and even people in families themselves, like they even have families backing them up. Like okay, like they can see the problem you're facing, they can help you work through it. Like there's a idea that if we face a problem, we're gonna work through the problem. We're not just
Yeah.
gonna divorce. You know, versus here it's like so easy, boom, like that. Like I don't love you anymore, I'm gone. You know, and I think that there's a different degree to which people even care about the idea of a family. You know, like for some cultures, that is the main whole crux of their culture. You know, like we talk about culture, food's a part of culture. You know, ways of life are a part of culture. But some cultures are built around the entire idea of family. You know,
Yeah.
certain holidays are just designed because the whole family is coming together. And I think there are different countries that value it more than others. And I think that plays a huge role into it as well. But
Yeah, I definitely agree. It's much more culture than government or laws. But I think, like, the more I'm thinking about it, it's like I prefer the American culture of, like, you need to get out there and explore who you're actually meant to be with. I think, like, if you realize 5 or 10 years later, like, I need to find someone else, I still, like, support that culture. And that idea of kind of like an independence within like family values that I think is really important for in America, and is just also just like a part of like fighting things like misogyny, just like because in these other countries that you're describing, a lot of that is like the roles of women to just be like housewives or whatever. And so what I mean is like America is a much more culturally free place where you can have much more control over your own life. So when I look at like the divorce rates, like I would rather have a 50% divorce rate, but everybody marry who they know they want to marry, versus a 1% divorce rate, and it's just a bunch of sad, passionless marriages with families that are kept together just for the sake of being kept together, you know. So I think like the U.S., I don't think it's where it should be fully. Obviously, I think we need to have stronger family values, but I also think those other countries are also not where they need to be, because they're not as culturally like free or, you know, forgiving. Like I know friends, like especially like one of my best friends from China. He has this like idea of like, he's 19, but he still has to follow every wish of his parents, and like he believes like he needs to find like a virgin and get married and have kids and just be with one person his whole life. And I just feel like that's just too restrictive, and it's too like it's so designed that it's not like it. The chance of it being real love is just much lower.
Yeah.
You know?
In my opinion, I know before I was talking about how, you know, you might find the one, you know, things might end up working out the way they do. But at the same time, I think this ideology of, like, I need to keep looking to find the one. This is not the one. I'm going to end this marriage and start a new one. I think that hopping around thinking that the next marriage is going to fulfill you is bullshit. I think that the same way you were describing before, that pretty much all lives are tragedies, but it's about reframing it. I think the same thing with love, you know. You might think this love is a tragedy because of this problem you faced. And most marriages end over, like, small petty shit, you know. And in your eyes it might be a tragedy, but there's always a way of reframing it and fixing that. Not in every case, you know. In some cases, like the one your friend described, maybe it's really restrictive, you know. Maybe they genuinely are just completely incompatible. Maybe the man is taking over and being abusive in a way. Get out of that. I agree. But for the most part, when people are divorcing over this small thing, when it's 50%, like, they're not 50% abusive marriages. You know, there's a lot of marriages where they're like, you know what, I'm not in love anymore. The next one's gonna fulfill me. The next one's gonna fulfill me. You know, I think that's a little bullshit, and I think it creates like this myth that having freedom, individual freedom, you know, as like your 19-year-old friend wants, having individual freedom, having the ability to do whatever you want, being independent, being me, doing whatever I want to do, will bring me joy. I think that's kind of an illusion it creates because we like control. But I think, in my opinion, people can disagree with me, I think true fulfillment comes from stability. And I've seen that. I see that a lot when I go back home and visit my family in India, because there's something so peaceful about the human mind when you're stable, and you can always rely on like your family being there. You know, you can always rely on people being there. And I think in this culture of like, you know, I've changed my mind, I want to go do this now, I want to do that now, and this now, and then you end up being like 6 years old and you're all by yourself, you know, whether that be because the family's not there anymore. I feel like that leads to a much higher degree of depression, anxiety, low mood. I mean, you can even pull up the stats of like America versus other countries. Like, sure, we're more free over here, but I thought that means we're all supposed to be more happier, right? But then we're all depressed over here and killing ourselves. Suicide rates going through the roof. Well, you go to like countries over there. When I visit my family, and they live in the traditional family dynamic. And I'm not saying everyone should follow that dynamic, you know. Some women, for example, might genuinely want to work, and they should go work if they genuinely want to. But at least from what I've seen in my family back at home when I visit them, they live in this small village. It almost seems like it should be restricted because, you know, my aunt, she stays at home, she cooks, she cleans the house, she takes care of the home, she takes care of the kids. Her husband goes out, does the hard work every day, comes back home, and I think in America we look at that as almost like that's bad. We should not live like that. It's abusive to the woman. But when I go there, everyone is just so happy, you know. My aunt's so happy. She's like, "Oh, Sharia, it's so good to see you." You know, finally, my uncle Sabaj, he's finally back from work. Like, we're so excited. You fart? No. My uncle Sabaj, he just worked so hard. Finally, he's back home. So excited for us to all come together, and they're all just around each other laughing. My grandma's there. Finally, like, they're so happy. My dad just came back from America. Has been so busy, so far away. They don't give a fuck about all that, you know, individual freedom. I'm gonna do this now. I want to do that now. Like, and they face problems too, but you work through those problems, you know, and you realize that your life's not a tragedy. You can reframe it, you know. And they're all so happy over there, and it almost opened my eyes that you can live in a traditional way and still be happy, because it's not about, I see a problem, I'm gonna run away from the problem and find a new answer, because it'll never fulfill you. It's about working through things and building stability, and over time, You know, I feel like so much joy comes from. I mean, when I'm older, I want my parents to come live with me. I want to have my kids to be around their grandparents all the time, and I want to have a huge family and have everyone together because at least my value is family, and I genuinely believe that there's gonna be problems in every single marriage. Every single marriage is gonna have a problem, and you're supposed to work through it, in my opinion. And not an abusive case. Not if the wife genuinely wants to work, let her go work. I'm no problem with that. But I think that a lot of women would be fulfilled in that traditional family dynamic because that's what I've seen in front of my own eyes, and I want to find someone who shares that value too. Not saying that's a standard way everyone should live, but I mean, I think if you look at the happiness, true happiness, it's really a question of like, is it an illusion that individual freedom will give you happiness, or is it just part of this culture of like, you know, I want a pill to solve my problems, you know, I want money to solve my problems, or is it about the things that matter most, you know? So that's what I mean.
I mean, I agree with a lot of what you're saying. Like having a strong family connection and a bond like that is very, you know, like gratifying in life and very important. I guess it just like brings up like a few like notions for me, or like a few like quotes. Like I just think of the idea of like ignorance is bliss, and this other quote, truth is like poetry and everybody hates poetry. And what I mean,
truth is like poetry.
And a lot of people hate poetry.
Okay, I got it.
And basically what I mean by that is like, you say they're all really happy, but does that mean like they're living the fullest potential of their lives?
What do you define as the fullest potential?
Okay, well, what I mean by that is like, would you want to be a housewife for your whole life and not be an entrepreneur?
No.
But what if you were born as a woman in that role?
Well, I feel like I'd be a completely different person in that case, and with different desires.
So, but in that sense, you're born, like, in this box then.
Fair.
Based on what you're born as, what the rest of your life has to look like. And that's what I'm against. Because I think that, like, again, we follow the path of least resistance. And so, even though, like, you say, like, I'm fine with a woman working, if my aunt didn't want to be a housewife her whole life, I'd be fine with that. Maybe it's just because of that role was the easiest role for her that's why she's, you know, happy in that role, you know. And so maybe, like, even if by law you're allowed to do other things, if that's just, like, the role that you're put in, that's just what you're going to be. And so, like, that's why culture is more important than government. Because at the end of the day, your culture is what defines, you know, the shape of your life, regardless of what the law is, you know, equal rights or not. Like, that's why I see American culture as not being perfect, but being, you know, producing more free thinkers, producing more independent minds, being more socially, you know, accepting to all people, and that's better, I think, not just socially but like economically.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you have more people in your workforce thinking like, I'm gonna live my life for me, I don't have to be a wife, I don't have to be a husband, not necessarily. I think that just produces more like free thinking.
Yeah.
Because what it sounds like for you is like, if you have this vision where I need to have a wife and I need to have kids, well, then that kind of becomes a box.
It's a box. I agree.
But, like, what if you would be happier without that, and this is just a false notion?
Well, we'll never know, will we?
But
if we're always looking for it, then nothing will ever fulfill us. That's what I believe. But another thing is, like, the thing you asked me before was really interesting, that would you want to be a housewife for your whole life? And
Mm-hmm.
I answered no. I feel like if you asked my aunt the same question, but the other way around, that, okay, do you want to be a housewife for the rest of life? She's like, sure, I enjoy it. Okay, but what if you were born as a guy and you have to work? She's like, oh, I wouldn't want to do that. I feel like she'd respond in the same way because, at least from knowing her as a person. And, you know, I think that, sure, America, I love America. I really do. I think America, the idea of capitalism, like those founding fathers, what they were able to create and build here is some good shit, you know. They did produce some great thinkers and such a free society. I could just post videos online and talk about whatever the fuck I want, you know. Like most countries can't do that, you know. And there's a lot I love about this country, but the one problem I have is family culture, because sure, I agree with you. You know, we make these boxes and stuff, And, you know, sure, being a housewife is a box, but feminism is another box, you know? It is. At the end of the day, it is. Like, we don't know for sure what we really want, you know?
Yeah.
And I think you have to admit that there's at least a small percentage of people, a small percentage of women, even if it's small, even if it's not big, but there is a percentage of women that might be more fulfilled as a housewife, but they feel like it'd be bad for feminism and they have no choice in the society. They will be looked down upon if they were to pursue that, which is true. So is this like a new box we created? Like, are you truly free if everyone's looking down upon you for, well, you're like supporting your husband being a wife, but all your friends are going and pursuing college degrees? People are going to look down upon you upon that. At the end of the day, everything's a box. But I think the one thing that's unique about American culture is that we have this mindset that something will fix our problems immediately, you know? Divorce will solve our problems. A new marriage will solve our problems. This pill will solve our problems. The instant ramen microwave will solve our problems. You know, we want everything fast, instant. And the one thing I love about other culture, sure, it's less free. You're in more of a box. They're more likely to be stuck in a box, which is a pretty bad situation. But from my personal experience, what I've seen, and the genuine biological differences that there are between men and women, not in terms of what they're capable of, because there are women who can do MMA fighting and boxing, and there's men who can't. You know, it's not strictly what we're capable of.
Men have more testosterone.
That's true, but not even what we're capable of, but what our interests are. I think what's really interesting to me is when I read about the biological differences in men and women, but not what they're capable of, but what they're actually interested in, which is really interesting, right? There shouldn't be, like, let's say, okay, men produce more testosterone, so they're better at fighting. So should that mean no woman should fight? I disagree, because there are some women who can fight better than men. Agreed? So we shouldn't set a rule saying that who should be allowed to do what based on. But at the same time, the differences between men and women are not only what they're capable of, they're also things that we're interested in. So let me give you an example about that. Men, because they produce more testosterone, because of their biological nature, genuinely enjoy hard things more. We genuinely do more than women. At a biological level, which cannot be denied. Not true for every man and woman, but for about 80% of men. I do agree. I do believe that. And that is what...
I know some...
You can search that up if you want. And same with women, that there are a lot of women
that are crazy.
They exist. They exist.
Yeah.
But
they do way harder things than me and you.
I agree. And they exist. And that's why everyone should be allowed to do what they want. But at the same time, in interests, I think 80% of men... Or I don't put numbers out there if they're incorrect. Majority of men are interested in more things related to, like, hard work, grinding, that type of shit. And I think a significant portion... I'm not going to say all women, but over 50% of women genuinely lean toward interested more in caretaking kind of things. And sure, there are structures in society that force people into this role, which shouldn't exist. But if none of those boxes existed, if the box of being a housewife didn't exist, if the box of you have to work didn't exist, if neither of those existed and there's no social pressure at all, I think a greater proportion of women, just from the biological data, would lean more toward jobs that were related to caretaking. Just based on our biological interests, which is really interesting to me. But again, maybe if it's 55%, so you should be allowed to do what you want. But I think it's really important to establish that we genuinely do biologically have different interests.
I mean, the problem with determining, like, differences between men and women biologically is, like, you really can't remove culture.
Yeah.
And you can't remove society. Because humans are social creatures, so it doesn't even... Like, what good would removing society do? In a hypothetical... Because we always live in a society, so I don't think that's a very, like, important thing to talk about. So, like, obviously we have to look at the reality of where culture has put us, and culture has created gender differences, and now they have become real just because of those ingrained cultures over 5,000 years. So yeah, I don't know if there's... I don't think the genetic or cultural differences are enough to create the disparities that exist in, like, the job market, or, like, I mean, really at this point it's less of the, like, aggregate job market that's impacted, or, like, the average pay or whatever. That used to be the biggest problem, but now it's more of, like, the top positions. Like, if you look at politicians or the top business people or the top people in any field, it's still just predominantly men. So that's what has yet to be overcome. Just because, like, it takes time, I think. Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to, like... I don't want to, like, claim things that I don't know about and upset people when it comes to feminism. 'Cause I'm a feminist, you know? I think there's nothing wrong with feminism.
I think there's gonna be stages to it. I'm hoping this is what American society goes through. Like, I think the stage we're in is a really important stage, and I'm supportive of it. I think stage 1 is that you have a role and you have to fulfill it, and you have no choice. Stage 2 is like, wait, we're all capable of similar kind of things. Like, women can do shit too. Okay, stage 2. I'm hoping that stage 3 will reach a point where we realize that, okay, we're all capable of the same thing, but what do we actually want to do with our life? And then we can realize that, okay, if you want it, I hope we can reach a stage where, like, we can be so aware that men and women are different, because I genuinely believe we are very different. I'm not saying men are better than women or women better than men, but we are different.
We are very different?
I think we're very different creatures. I think we look at the world differently. I think we operate differently. I think we think differently. I'm not saying one's better than the other, but I think it's different. And there's skills women have that men don't have, and there's skills men have that women don't have biologically. And I'm hoping stage 3 we can reach a point where you do what you want to do in life, because everyone's genetically unique, but we can also be acceptive of our differences and be happy with our differences, instead of like, oh, you're a woman, you have to be like a man. Instead of like, you're a woman, you could be like a woman and still be happy and fulfilled and do whatever the fuck you want, you know?
Yeah.
There's some things that women are really good at. The women biologically, you can search this up too to confirm it, but they biologically have a much greater EQ than men. And
emotional.
Evolutionarily, it makes sense, because, you know, men, we produce more testosterone, we're stronger, we're more fit. If we want to gain power, we can just take it, you know? We can just, like, if we wanted to. In a primitive society of hunter-gatherer.
We have to be less emotionally connected.
In hunter-gatherer societies, we can just do whatever the fuck we want.
Bro,
right,
EQ.
Wikipedia. All right, Wikipedia. EQ, not IQ, bro.
But, I mean, I read somewhere
yeah,
that...
see, women tend to have a higher emotion. I think, sorry, I'll let you speak. I just want to finish this point real quick, because the reason women have a higher EQ is because since men can just, in the primitive hunter-gatherer society, can just take power just by taking it, women can't do that. They have to develop other ways of getting power. And the way they would do that is evolutionarily, the women who were better at reading social cues and reading, like, the actions and people and predicting their movements, they had a greater chance of survival and reproduction, because they can use that to their advantage. And I think because of that, women can see the world in a different way that we can't really understand. Like, they can see social dynamics in a way that we can't understand, which is crazy.
I think, yeah. I mean, I think that's true for the average. Like you said, like, there's women that are stronger than men. And there are men, I think, who are more emotionally connected than women. You know? And I think that's something, like, in this day and age when we're not hunter and gatherers anymore, like, I think men should strive to be more emotionally expressive and connected. And I think that's, like, important. But yeah, what I was saying is, like, I read somewhere that I think women actually have, like, a higher pain tolerance than men.
Pain tolerance.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is interesting.
Could be true. I don't know. I haven't
Just because of, like, with childbirth, they have to go through, like, immense pain.
It's pretty tough.
I just thought that was interesting. No, bro, this is...
I don't know what study. I mean, it's hard to...
Women are more
women are more likely than men to report pain. That's funny. I don't know. It could be wrong. It could be right. It's hard to just use Google to kind of search these things up.
I don't know. Maybe it was just for that one specific instance.
Yeah, but again, like, even if they were, like, let's hypothetically this is wrong and, like, they were, again, interest is what I care about, not capability. Like, what the fuck do you actually want to do? And nobody knows that, man, because we're so, like, pliable, our brains. Yeah. Like, let me give you an analogy. Let's say a woman in today's society wants to be a housewife. She's looked down upon. A woman in that society wants to be an entrepreneur. She's looked down upon. And we care about our place in society, so our actions will reflect that. And what we genuinely enjoy will reflect that. So it's impossible to really tell, just based on looking at society, like, what will truly fulfill you. But the only evidence I could really look at that is reflective of countries versus countries is that depression rates, suicide rates. I mean, the truth is, like, everyone's depressed. You know, and it's true in America, and it's not true in other countries.
Everyone's depressed?
It's true. By everyone, I mean the 80% of people.
Are you depressed?
I'm very happy in life. I think we have a selective bias. So I think everyone on the podcast has been fine so far, but we don't look at the millions of people that just, like, wake up at, like, 1 and start scrolling. Like, there's a lot of people who are depressed. But.
Yeah. I don't know. It's all very interconnected. Like, race, gender, and just, like, just yourself. Like, your own personal philosophy. It's all connected, I think. So I think it's ultimately all, like, the same issue that we're all facing, or the same, like, philosophical things we're grappling with, and it just plays out in different ways.
Yeah.
Like it all comes down to like certain elements. Yeah, but I don't know if I'll say like men and women are that different.
Why
Like,
not?
or not in the ways that like truly matter, I guess.
What do you mean by truly matter, though? Like, I'm not saying that just because men and women are different, one should be allowed to do something or not. You know, that's what you mean by truly matter, right?
Yeah.
Fair.
Because you say, like, men and women have different, like, capabilities and genetically have different, like, strengths and weaknesses, which would imply, like, there to be, like, a big disparity in, like, in these, like, top roles.
No, I don't think that.
But, like, if they have completely different ways of looking at things, then do you think, like, both ways are just equally as good, but they're just different?
I think the best way to describe it is, like, if you're playing a video game where there's different characters you can choose, they have different superpowers, right? Like, this Pokemon has the fire power and that Pokemon has the water power, but there's a super good fire power and a super good water power, you know? Like, this doesn't mean that one is better than the other, or it's like a linear trend. It's like, there's a whole different, like, this character can, like, solve problems in this way, and that character can solve problems in that way, but I don't think that I completely disagree that we look at the world in the same way, but I also think that doesn't necessarily mean that it affects our capabilities, because we approach problems in different ways, which is cool. Each individual human, even if you ignore men and women, each individual human looks at the world a different way. You know, I saw problems way different than way you saw problems. You can search up this book by, I forget his name, but Frames of Intelligence or something, Frames of Mind. It's so interesting to look at how different people see the world. And then you can even search up, like, the men and women's, like, biological neuroscience differences. It's, honestly, I find it so cool. It's this book right here. Search up, like, the 8 type, like, if you scroll down, like, the 8 types of intelligence. Like, there's all these different kinds of intelligence. You know, that there's people who look at the world in this way and that way. And I know it just says something very basic, like logic, mathematical, or music, rhythmic. That doesn't mean you have to be a musician. That just means that there's a different way your brain processes problems in some way that's related to, like, rhythms. It's really interesting. This shit's so cool to me. But, yeah, I don't know. But yeah, to your point, like, since we can solve problems differently, does not mean that role should be only reserved for certain people. And there has been social ideologies that have caused who are the people in the position of power. Like, fair enough, but at the same time, I think that there's some of the skills that women have are really powerful skills that can be really effective at the highest level. But for me, it's not really about who's capable of what. For me, it's really about, number one, what do you actually find interesting? And I don't think it's the end of the world for a family, if they choose to live in a traditional family dynamic way. I think people in society look down upon that, like, oh, you're oppressive, but, like, I don't think it's the end of the world if, like, I am the sole provider and my wife. I even talked about that with some of my female friends, and they think that a lot of females actually agree with me as well, and they think that they have genuine different interests. I'm not saying that's true for everyone, but I think the second thing that matters a lot is that I do think our society is merit-based. You know, it hasn't always been that way, but I really hope that we can create a society that's merit-based. That if a company genuinely finds certain skills in a certain person, that they will choose them over the other. I think that society is merit-based, so you will a company has no incentive to pick someone if it's going to hurt them, if they clearly can see that someone else is better at a certain position. So in an ideal meritocracy, then we're fine, because at the end of the day, like, the people vote, right? We're choosing who we want, and there's equal amount of men and women at the end of the day. So it's really about choosing who do you genuinely believe in a certain position. So if you can keep moving toward an ideal meritocracy, then I think we're fine as well.
Interesting, yeah. That's interesting that you transitioned to, like, meritocracy from that. I mean, the last thing I'll say on the family thing is, like, I don't think there should be a traditional family. That's, like, my main point. Like, there's no such thing as a traditional
Okay,
family,
I say traditional because that's how they define it. Like, you can call it whatever you want. But
yeah, like, in the past there has been, but I don't think there should be. I think any type of family should be accepted as long as it's, like, healthy and non-abusive, and it's, you know, it provides support, provides all the things a family should have. But then, yeah, with meritocracy, I think, like, in the long run, we're a meritocracy, but not in the short run necessarily. And what I mean by that is, like there's so many times in the short run where people with, whether it's nepotism or more money or just basic luck or just the restrictions we have with our limited information, and so sometimes we have to speculate on who's better just without much information, judging people by just meeting them. Like, because of certain things like that in the short run, a lot of times merit is overlooked, and the true like what merit is ultimately becomes present in the long run. And like, so like you say, like America's a democracy, so the person with the most votes has the most merit, but
at least in the eyes of the people.
Yeah, in the eyes of the people.
Yeah.
But in the long run, like, that's what'll be decided. In the short run, it could be possible, like, you know, we elect a bad president, or we decide on a bad law, or a company hires the wrong person, or makes the wrong decision. In the long run, what that looks like is, you know, companies collapsing, new companies being formed, you know, new administrations coming in. It's like, in the long run, we're a meritocracy, but what's kind of unfortunate is I feel like a lot of our daily, like, day-to-day lives are impacted by things that are not completely merit-based, you know, and that are unfair.
Okay.
Just because we're all very, like, biased.
That's fair.
And so over the long run, it's a meritocracy just because, like, we are, like, the world is the survival of the fittest. So eventually, like, yeah, if a company produces more and earns more, they'll stay alive versus others that don't. But
I agree with you.
You know, a lot of stuff can happen in between those moments, or in between that long run.
I think it's interesting to distinguish that when you say, sure, we have a long-term meritocracy, like, what does long really mean, right? I think one of the unique things about America compared to other countries is that the government and the private sector are completely separate. You know, in China, for example.
In the U.S.
Yeah, in the U.S. Government and private sector are completely separate. Let me give you an example. In China, for example, if the Chinese government wants to invest in a company, they'll just throw all their money into it and, like, have the company succeed. And they can kind of control and choose that they'll come and integrate. They're trying to lean toward more of a capitalistic model as well, but at the end of the day, that there's so much government interference in the private sector that it's not technically a true capitalistic meritocracy, whatever, because Chinese government can just throw their money wherever they want and allow. They're going to see that company doing well. They're going to invest, like with DeepSeek, for example. You know, it's those kind of. But I think in America, the long-term meritocracy that you describe is actually really quick, very quick, and I'll tell you why. Can you search up, like, how many companies exist? Technically, how many companies exist in the U.S. today? There's probably, like, millions, because I could start a company right now on my computer if I wanted to.
There are.
Right?
Yeah, there's a lot.
So let's say there's company A and company B, and they're trying to find people to hire on the team. Like, let's see how many there are. It's like 33 million companies, right? Not all of them are going to be successful. And some of these companies that do become successful really happen overnight almost. Like, shit goes up and down like crazy. That's the way the free market capitalism works. There's company A and company B that are competing, and one of them's going to move to the next level or succeed. They have to hire people. And let's say there's person A and person B. Let's just consider them two individual people. Let's say company A looks at person A and says, I like him better, but person B technically was the better candidate. Then probably the person who hired person B is immediately going to beat person A in the long run after you've done this process a million times and you've hired a bunch of people. At the end of the day, the way how quick capitalism works in the U.S., we see companies just shoot up overnight. And I genuinely believe that at the end of the day, sure, it's over long periods of time, but at the end of the day, whoever chooses the right people will rise to the top. There's no doubt about it. All the big companies you see today, like Amazon, Facebook, whatever is up there today, it's not because of luck. It's because they had the best people, and there's luck involved, obviously, but at the end of the day, only the companies that have the highest merit people will get to the top, and it happens pretty quick. Max, like a couple of years, really, for these companies.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I want to break down what you said, because, like, I agree with, like, the notion that, like, as an entrepreneur yourself, like, you will be tested very quickly on your merit compared with other people at your level, but that's with the assumption that your level matters. And so, like you said, if you're comparing the merit of yourself in, like, Joe Rogan's podcast, for example, like a startup AI company versus OpenAI, the problem with testing merit with those two levels is because of basically in what we learn in economics as economies of scale. And that is, like, the bigger you are, the easier it is to stay on top. And like, so if you're like a genius and innovator, if you could make the best product there is on the market, but you have the limited resources you have with you and the limited connections, like Jeff Bezos is still going to win at the end of the day, even if he sits around doing nothing, just because you create all this momentum and mass of money and people that at that point it's almost like a self-functioning being. And so I will say, like, for the most part, America is very much a meritocracy. But when we have all these, like, mega corporations, it becomes problematic because then, like, their only goal, technically, by law, is to appease their shareholders and to make a profit. And so if to do that, it means suppressing every little company that has a new idea, buying them out, stopping them in their tracks, then they'll do that. And that can be very, very dangerous. And then also what you said, the very first thing you said was that private entities and public entities are separate in America.
The government and private sector.
Government and private sector.
Yeah.
Which, by law, you could argue may be true, but in actuality, I actually disagree with.
Okay.
Because, for example, the lobbying industry. The entire goal of lobbyers is to create these massive super PACs that amass funding that basically almost force Congress people to vote on various issues that will keep their government, that will keep the companies and their agendas in line. And this happened a lot with cigarette companies. It happened with oil companies. It happens with basically every company, that they're different entities, but the sectors are very merged because they have, like, the government directly affects the private sector, and the private sector has a lot of interest in government now because they realize that it impacts the private sector. And like what you were saying about China with DeepSeek AI,
I don't know if they funded DeepSeek. I just want to say that, but they have funded companies in the past. Yeah.
well, the U.S. just like Donald Trump just announced their new funding of OpenAI.
Really?
So, yeah, like
Damn.
pull it up,
I
Theo.
don't know about that.
The new like
Are you serious?
initiative to invest, and Trump just created a sovereign wealth fund, which is a pool of money, basically a portfolio account that invests in companies, and that's a government entity investing in the private sector. So it's like they do kind of they clash and they come together, and so I guess they're two kind of like separate issues, but like the U.S. is not a perfect meritocracy or a perfect like capitalist society, I would say.
That's a fair point. I agree with your second point. I think that makes sense. I mean, now that as you speak, there are more examples I remember of private sector and government sector being integrated in the U.S. I think it's better than other countries, but I mean, this is a pretty clear
way
example.
better than other countries.
But this is still a pretty clear example with the investment in AI that they are still pretty integrated. I will say to your first point that sure, there are big companies that are at the top, and it's very easy for them to stay at the top, but at the end of the day, there were a small company that got to the top as well, and that was merit-based.
Yeah.
So I think with the first point, I think that still, even though they're at the top, that does not necessarily mean it's not a meritocracy, but I think your second point makes sense to me, that the U.S. is not perfect either, that there are still flaws in the system. So.
Yeah, and it's like that's just what I think about myself, because it's like, how is someone like me gonna change the world when Google has like billions of dollars and researchers and experts trying to do what I'm doing with all that resources? Like, if I want to build the next virtual reality technology, how am I gonna beat Google's $100 billion in research and development? Like, it's not even like a fair fight.
Well, I will say that you could still grow as a company, right? Like OpenAI did not exist when all these major corporations were there, but they had a really innovative product that got them to the top, and now they're one of them too. And then everyone kind of hopped on the bandwagon. So if you do truly have something good, you can get to the top without directly competing. And at the same time, I can kind of think of this as like a tournament. First round, 33 million. Next round, 1,000. I don't know. It's like a tournament. At the end of the day, like, if you think about the idea of a meritocracy, it means that if you're better than him, then you will beat him and you will rise to the top, right? So at level 1, if you're competing with all the small companies, if you go from a nothingness, a no company that doesn't exist, to a company with a little bit of money, you manage to beat round 1. Round 2, you get a little bit more money. So I think with those rounds, I'm not saying you become Google in a day, but at least when you're competing with the same people at your level, it is merit that decides who proceeds.
Yeah, but I mean, you're not really competing with people at the same level. Like, you're competing with Amazon and Google and Apple. If you think about it, like, they're still there. And then,
But you don't have to be better than them. You could still be a company that's smaller than them, but still successful.
yeah. Or, like, what happens if they just buy you out? And then, or do, like, a hostile takeover with their $1 trillion market cap?
It's your choice at the end of the day.
Like, these companies have as much money as countries, if you think about it.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
It's hard to compete with them.
That's fair.
You know?
I guess it depends on what you value at the end of the day. But, I mean, when you have that much money coming at you, it's kind of hard to say no to it. It's almost like makes perfect sense for you to just let them buy it. But,
Yeah.
yeah, it's
But
not
I mean,
perfect. But
it keeps happening, though. Like, you're right. Like, OpenAI happened. It blew up. You know, maybe it's just like, just because it's a really high bar doesn't mean it's impossible. You know?
yeah. I don't know. As future entrepreneurs, it should be a fun journey.
This next app, because it's an app.
Okay.
It's
We're
gonna
getting
change-
some information.
It's
boys.
going
We're
to
getting
change
some
the
information.
world. It's going to change the world.
I really want it to, Xander. I'm really excited for this new app. And I hope soon you'll have it launched so we can talk about it for round 2.
Yeah. It'll either be a discussion of what went wrong, or it'll be like a celebration.
I want to see a celebration, man. Yeah.
You should have Diego Piers on this.
We'll get you
I
guys
don't
on
want to
together,
tell you. I
maybe.
don't want to tell you how to do your podcast, but
No, I'm always open to
we have some
ideas.
good banter. If you get both of us on,
I can get both of you on. It'll be a fun conversation.
yeah. Like, what's the most amount of people you'd ever have on? At
I've
once?
had 4 guests on at a time.
So 5 people.
5 total, yeah.
Wow.
I've done 5 people once, 4 people like 2 or 3 times, 4 people 2 times, and 3 people a couple times. Usually one-on-ones I like the most, but dude, fuck it, let's go get Diego on. We can schedule it right now if you want.
Yeah, he's in New York, talking to investors or something. But
Yeah, I mean I'm booked out till like mid-March anyway, so.
Yeah.
Xander, it was a pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming down. Finally got this through.
Yeah. Thanks to you so much for having me. It was a great conversation.
We touched on a lot of shit.
Yeah, it was funny. Like, you said, like, you just kind of end up talking about things and you don't really plan it, and that's really just what happens, I guess.
It's pretty cool.
So-
We touched on a lot of shit.
We did.
This is one of my favorite ones.
I feel like this could help some people.
I hope it does.
Help some people out.
Yeah. There's just a bunch of random college students trying to figure things out too. So if that's you too, pop out the journey. Yeah, man. Any last words
Last words. What are you about to do to me?
before you never see Xander again?
Subscribe to the Baruah podcast.
Thank you for reminding me. I have to film an outro because I deleted my old outro by accident. Anyways, good night, guys. If you enjoyed that episode, then I guarantee that you'll enjoy this episode right here. Make sure you click here to watch that episode, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more. It is the best way you can support me to help me to keep growing and better guests, better production, and continue on the journey to make this the best podcast in the world.